Good morning, we're live. Good morning, Emma. Good morning, Michelle. And good morning to all of our listeners, either watching in live or watching back later on. Thank you so much, ladies, for agreeing to join me. And I'm delighted to have you both with me. I know this is Joanne and Friends show. And I know that you two ladies have been absolutely a huge part, I suppose, soul friends as much as anything for me over the last number of years. So I'm really, really excited to have you here joining me this morning. I'll let you do your intros to yourselves and tell the world how wonderfully amazing you are. Emma, if you want to take that first for us.
Wow, I don't know really what to say to that. Well, my name is Emma Mullen-Marmion, and I own a HR and training consultancy in Newry and Belfast called Prestige HR. So this is an extremely busy time for us at the moment. And my second job is I'm the president of Newry Chamber of Commerce and Trade. So equally a very, very busy time at the moment. Plus I'm the mum of two boys. And I have two goats and a donkey. So that's pretty much how I spend my time. And I think I'm equally important to all of them.
Hi, will I go next?
Yes, go ahead. Sorry, my side wasn't playing ball there. So I didn't catch any of that intro. But Michelle, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, well, oh my God, amazing. Emma, you're busy lady. My name is Michelle. I live up on the north coast of the north of Ireland, and I'm founder of the Sunshine Project. And for the last 2 years, I have been delivering various positive programs in the community, in schools, and with businesses. And I have a little boy who's 5, and he's called Sonny. So I think you're getting the theme. I like the fun. So yeah, and I'm delighted to be here today with two amazing ladies.
Yeah, it's I guess unprecedented times. Ladies, just bear with me 1 second, I'm sure viewers. I'm going to try and just figure out this sound again for myself because it's just not going at all. Can I get Emma to do a wee sound check there for me?
Perfect. I can hear you now.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Michelle, is that okay?
Yeah, it was a little echo there, but it's perfect now.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, I know we have so many different parts of our journey in common, and I think one of the key things that I want to say to our listeners that today we've mentioned that we're going to talk about laughter and food. I know two things that we're both, the three of us are all very passionate about, and I guess it's not to make light of any of the more serious situations that we find ourselves in. And I think there sometimes can be a perception that people that do the work that we do and that talk in kind of the ways that we talk have got there because life has been super easy and we've never had any challenges. And for me, one of the things that I often find when I meet people who are following a similar path to myself is that the reason we've got there is actually because we've been through some difficult times in our lives and we've turned to the tools that we have in order to I guess find our way through those. So, you know, just with that, as we move through the show, I wanted just to mention that at the beginning, that this is not in any way to kind of make light of the more serious situations that a lot of people are finding themselves in and going through right now. So, Michelle, your own journey with laughter yoga, can you tell us a little bit about how you find it?
Well, actually, just echoing what you were talking about there, it was through a really difficult time in my life that I discovered laughter yoga. So it was back in 2008, and I was working in financial services at the time, and we had just experienced the recession, and I got made redundant, and that job that I had at the time was literally like my baby. I lived and breathed for that job and that company and the people that I worked with. And I was just really devastated when I got made redundant. And I remember driving to Newry because our office was based in Newry. I remember driving to work just the last day before the business all closed, and the grief I just was in floods of tears. So upset, and it was during that time and my healing and trying to kind of figure out, well, what do I actually want to do now? Because I had an opportunity whereby I could really explore various different things. And 2 years prior to that, I did a counselling course and I started my Reiki journey. So I was curious, really curious. And my good friend Jackie, she did her laughter yoga training, and she said, Michelle, why don't you come along to my class? It might make you feel a little bit better. And so off I went. I don't know, did I bring my mum? I brought my mum to one of the sessions. I can't remember if it was the first one or the second one. And what happened was really profound. So it wasn't that my challenges of being unemployed and financial struggles that I had at that time, it wasn't that they had disappeared, they were still very much there. But during the class, I got respite from up pain. So I wasn't thinking about what had happened in the past or how I was going to get another job or pay my bills. So I was being present, I was being mindful. But more than that, I was having a good time. I was laughing, I was feeling joyful, and I remember at the end of the session saying to Jackie, I could actually fly home. I just felt lighter. I felt like I had let go of stuff. I didn't know what the stuff was, but I knew I just felt different. And that's why I discovered yoga. So it was actually through a really challenging time that laughter brought some light relief from that. It really did help me seek out the joy in life and good things in life again. And it's kind of been at the heart and soul of everything that I've been doing since then. So,
and yeah, and I have to say that was my experience. You know, it was one of the tools that I realized that a lot of the relaxation, a lot of the well-being stuff can be about being quiet and about being still and about, all of that side of things. And one of the programs that I run is a program called Be Balanced. And I realized at a point in my life that I wasn't really being balanced in the more light-hearted sort of that kind of energy of stuff. Yeah. And it was at that point that then, obviously I took the laughter journey as well. I know, Emma, laughter plays a big part in your life as well. We need to get together and do a laughter yoga session. But what are your thoughts around laughter and joy?
Well, I think, from a child, I think I realized that was really the key way that I dealt with any of the hardships that were in my life. And, whenever, some people may know, like whenever I was growing up, whenever I was 7, I had a sister who was born with special needs. And as a 7-year-old, my mum had to go to focus and look after her. But our house was very happy. And the way that the rest of the children were able to cope with it was through laughter. In our household right the whole way through, whether it was GCSEs, whether you didn't get your A levels, whether you broke up with a boyfriend, whether something didn't work out for you, there was always humor or music or something like that to try to balance. So I think from a very young age, it was something that we naturally learned, and it's something then that I've just carried right through then into the way that I see things, the way that I work in business, the way that I work even in the chamber. That's very much part of how we cope. And I think there can be duality, there can be two things happening at the same time. And I think over my life I realized that you can have hardship, but while all of that is going on outside the door, you can still be happy in a moment, and you can still have a period of joy. And I think what we're going through right now is the biggest challenge for a lot of people, even for our children. And if you look at, they are watching the news and they're very much aware of COVID-19. But then 5 minutes later, they're coloring in beside the fire. So it's that sort of reminder that we can have both of those happening at the same time, and laughter, or, you know, having our tools to be able to go back to, is our way of how we cope whenever we go back into that very scary.
Yeah, and I think absolutely. I mean, for me, I was having a conversation yesterday with a friend, and we were talking about, you know, how so many, for so long, so many people's coping mechanisms have come from, and the things that help them to manage day-to-day stress have been very much activity based, and, you know, running, and I know we all enjoy an active sort of outdoor lifestyle. And, you know, for many people, even their access to that has changed right now. And I keep going back to a quote that I saw at an early part of this journey, which is, if you can't go out, maybe it's time to go in. And for some people, that's, you know, that, I mean, I know we've been spending sort of a lifetime of going in, and it's something that we work at. And as I often say, you know, as you teach, you learn. So the fact that, you know, for many of us, for the three of us, we work in this field in different ways. We've become quite, I suppose the tool that we've relied on has been our going inward, our meditation practices, our mindfulness practices, our Reiki work, or Feng Shui, you know, a whole ream of tools there that are, you know, allowing us to go into quietness and stillness. And yet I'm very mindful that for so many people, this is a whole new space to go inwards. And I think, as Emma mentioned there, you know, finding joy in music and laughter and fun and colouring in, and perhaps some of those simple things. I mean, I found myself the other evening actually out for a walk, and again, we know we're limited, you know, we're not kind of travelling for walking and things like that at this stage. And so I took a tennis ball with me, and I literally tossed it from one hand to the other and played with it. And on another walk, because I'm walking the same route, I'm sure like most people, I kicked a stone along the road in front of me to see how far out my route I could get it. And whilst those things make us smile and sound childlike and playful, they're so important for our cognitive function and for keeping that brain active in a way that maybe it's not being challenged at the moment.
I agree. Funny, Sonny and I were out walking yesterday, and we started playing a game of I Spy, but it was I Spy colours, so you had to name the colour.
Okay.
And so I Spy with my little eye something green, so, or red or white. But, you know, it was such a simple game, really, really simple, but fun, and made the walk even more enjoyable. So I think, for me anyway, it's getting me to think a little bit more creatively about entertaining myself and a 5-year-old.
Yeah, and bringing fun and play in where we can, and even things like, you know, throwing a ball against the wall at the side of the house, you know, things that we would have done as children. And perhaps now we need to find new ways of being active and bringing movement in. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about saying to clients, when they talk about, for example, how, you know, you'll often hear people saying, running helps my anxiety. And I love to reframe that, because the way that sounds is, I'm a person with anxiety who is fixed by running. Whereas when we reframe it to, I'm a human who needs movement to be healthy and to function in the way that humans are designed to function, there's huge power in changing that around. How does that sit with you, Emma? I notice you're smiling.
I know, because it exactly the same way in work, we're teaching people very much now in our jobs of HR. We're very much talking about well-being and different things that people can do to help their well-being, and only one aspect of it. And whenever we start to work with groups who are very, they can very quickly go to physical. And I play football, I go to the gym, I lift weights, I run, but there's so many other areas to that. And even we start to teach them then different elements around finding fun in other things. And because life is so busy, everyone spends either so much time with their children or so much time in work, and then you're coming back to look after the children again. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of time left over for themselves. And what they spend their time doing, sometimes I don't have any time to find fun or to do things that I really like to do. Women who would say, I used to love knitting whenever I grew up. I used to love singing. I used to love being in a choir. I used to love playing music. I stopped that whenever I got married, or I stopped that whenever I had children. And really, it's starting to encourage people to go back and to look at those things that brought them joy and to seek those things out, as well as the physical aspect as well. So I think this time, whenever we speak to about 200 businesses, and at this moment, we're saying, okay, this is your time to go back and rediscover that you didn't have the time to do before. And so now people are sending me messages of pictures that they're drawing, or just different things that they hadn't done in quite a long time. And so I love the two phrases, because if you're relying solely on physical and you don't have anything else, well, right now we're having to recreate, well, what are we going to do now if we can't go for a 10-mile run? Well, now what am I going to do? And we're having to be creative and to look at other spaces to help us to balance.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because by nature, exercise, which is an incredible release for endorphins, can also, for some people, and obviously by its nature, it increases adrenaline, and we may already be running on tons of adrenaline right now. Many of us are in our fight and flight, so it's kind of finding our way to balance that. And I guess it's very difficult for many people to talk about exercise and not link that into food. And you both know that I'm passionate about kind of separating actually the two and not bringing them into the one conversation in the way that we typically do. So Michelle had reminded me at the weekend just of a podcast that I had done, and I guess I've been having some similar thoughts. What was it about the last couple of weeks that drew you to bring up the podcast that we'd done together a while ago, Michelle?
I think I just noticed on social media so many posts about food and diet, and don't let this situation put weight on you. Watch what you eat. I can keep you motivated. And I just thought, for goodness sake, we're in the middle of global emergency, a crisis. Life is not normal at the moment. And if somebody wants to eat cake, let them eat cake. I also was saying like funny memes about putting on weight during this time when you're in the house, and how you're a bad person because you've ate maybe a bit of cake or chips. And I just saw a post that said, you're not a bad person. You haven't burnt down a building or robbed a place. You're a person who is on cake. It's okay to eat cake.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me of our podcast, Joanne, about how, it's better to eat the cake, enjoy the cake for free, than it is to actually feel bad about the cake. Of course, until you can tell us the whole science of that.
Yeah. So I guess I know that was a real light bulb moment for you, Michelle, where you, hi, Sonny. You going to say hi? So yeah, I know whenever we had that conversation that felt like quite a light bulb moment for you, because when we're spending time looking after our health and our well-being, and we're very focused on our nutrition and all of those things, we can forget about the role that the psychology of eating plays for us.
Yeah.
And this time last year, I was actually finishing my qualification with the Institute for the Psychology of Eating. And I know, Emma, you will have been through some of that journey with me. And absolutely, over the last few weeks, I've started to notice I think it's been hashtag the COVID-15 kind of thing, where, there's this talk that we'll put on a stone of weight at least, and, all of this kind of thing. And I think it's really, really important for people to remember that absolutely, our reaction is normal, but what becomes a bigger problem is when we beat ourselves up for what is a normal physiological human reaction. When we understand why we're doing something, it becomes much easier to make a different choice. And that'll be something that I'll be exploring a little bit more through my own Facebook page and through some programs and things like that over the next few while to support people, because I think now is a really good time to understand our psychology of eating and how our beliefs shape how we eat and all the things that we do. How are you finding this time around food, Emma, and how are some of your beliefs and things like that being challenged?
Well, I think you and I have been on this journey and we've been talking about food for about a year or two. And I think what's really lovely is that now we have the time to cook. We now have the time to prepare. We now have the time to allow our children to be part of that with us. Yeah. It's not now eating for convenience. It's not now eating in a rush. It's not even having a fixed time that we have to eat for lunch breaks or a tea break. And so there's nothing normal about this situation anymore. But I think what I'm loving about it is that now we have the time to prepare everything that we're making, and then we enjoy it at the end. And I was laughing, there was somebody had posted on Facebook over the week, is like, if I see another picture of scones, it's like everybody just, this happened and everybody went to the kitchen to like make scones for themselves and for their family. Yeah. It's nearly like, I think there's something so innate within all of us. I don't know whether it's that we have to look after, we have to nurture ourselves, we have to make ourselves feel better. And I completely agree with that. There's nothing normal about where we are. And if food is one of the things that's going to help us to make us feel better, well, it's just one thing. There's going to be so many other things. Next week, it could be everyone out in the garden. The week after, it could be everybody sunbathing. It could be painting their home the week after. But just today, it is making scones or making bagels or cooking with your children. And that's okay.
Absolutely. I think, and there is lots of science behind that carbohydrate element of things. But even over and above that, what scones will symbolise for most of us is nurturing, warmth, safety. There is nothing in this world more comforting than the smell of freshly baked bread. I mean, it is the most comforting thing. It's such a warm feeling within. And scones are obviously there. I know, flour has been sold out and things like that. But it's a lovely activity to get children involved in. And what I would say there is allow yourself to really enjoy that, because not all calories are the same. And food that is made with love and with attention and care and enjoyed and eaten in that way with love and attention and mindfulness, and where all our senses are stimulated. So exactly as Emma said there, the beauty of, digestion doesn't begin in our stomach. Digestion actually begins here. It begins with our thoughts towards food. It begins with our sense of smell being stimulated. I don't know about anybody else, but as I'm talking now, my mouth's actually just beginning to water. I'm beginning to salivate, which is our first part of our digestion. And that happens when we smell. So when we slow down and have the opportunity to cook food from scratch and engage in the process, our digestive system will benefit hugely. One of the other things that's really important is in slowing down when we eat, allows us to use our teeth, which are again, one of our key digestive organs. we're meant to chew our food a lot more than what we actually do. I think it's like each bite should be 33 times or something like that. And hence why many of our European friends have such long lunches, because they do take time over it and they do slow down. If we allow ourselves that time now, we may just find ourselves with a very different relationship to food. We may give our digestive system a break where we can allow it to work effectively in the way that it's meant to. And absolutely, we may just bring ourselves a little bit of pleasure and a little bit of comfort. And however, if we metabolize those same food products from a place of guilt, we are much more likely, we're already digesting in stress response. If we add guilt into that mix, then we metabolize our food completely differently. So my advice would be absolutely, everything in moderation and balance. But if you are having, the little bit of extra bread or carbs or whatever, allow yourself that permission to deeply, deeply enjoy it. And to enjoy the process, an amazing opportunity to educate children as well, because, again, as we know, lives are so busy and we don't often get the chance to spend time in the kitchen with our children and young people. So, and what nicer thing to bake than scones, and to really enjoy those. And then to counterbalance that, I think one of the keys for me around nutrition and food is, if we look at how we can increase the nutrient value and decrease the chemical value of our food, by default, we will make choices that are more nutritious and more, fall into, and I'm not a fan of putting food in good food, bad food, but our choices then will come more from a place of, I guess, well-being. Because if we're wanting to reduce chemicals and we're wanting to increase nutrients, then we're going to eat food that is more nourishing and more supportive to a healthy lifestyle. And then the scones or the cakes or the chocolate cake or whatever else can come in there from a balanced place. And I'm aware that a lot of people who rely on, regular weight management classes and things like that may be struggling right now. So maybe have a little bit of a look into some psychology of eating. Two books that I would really recommend, I'll put the links for these in the comments, are Eating by the Light of the Moon and The Slow Down Diet. And they're a real opportunity for us to become more mindful with our food connection. And how all that's going. And as you say, Emma, then there may be some different activities that fall in there as well. And I notice you've got some beautiful flowers in the background there, and colour. How do you feel about colour and how that can help us right now?
Well, I think we're going to lots of, for me personally, I'm using lots of different things to try to change the dynamic of what's going on outside the door. I imagine, like, for the last 2 weeks, really, our conversation has been swamped every single day by businesses and owners who are very, very worried and very concerned, and by employees who are very fearful of the future, very fearful of their jobs and where that's going. We're speaking with our council every day. We're speaking with the hospitals, and all of the stakeholders in our community on almost daily basis on all of the issues that they're facing on a day-to-day basis right now. This is their reality right now. And I think whenever you have all of that coming into your home, your sanctuary, and it used to be your place where you could escape your work, but now your work has now come into the home, and your sanctuary isn't here anymore. So I guess I'm being challenged to use lots of different tools to try to separate work and home life, and to leave that fearful stuff to one side, so that I can go into a place and to build myself up again to be able to cope with that the next day. So we're using everything from color to gardening, to being outside, to cooking, to we're having to really start to separate those two lives. So for me, when I woke up this morning, my first thought was to put on my black polo neck because it's really warm. But it's very dark. But the challenge was to say, no, we are in spring. That is not where we're going today. That is not how we're going to feel today. You're going to be a daffodil today. This is what we're going for.
Emma the daffodil, I love it.
It had a huge impact.
Yeah.
And it had a huge part to play in terms of how I'm feeling today. And equally then, whenever I go live, whenever I'm on calls with people, what I'm wearing will have a reflection in terms of how I speak to other people. So I think it's hugely important. I use it every single day. We teach people about it whenever they're going for interviews, you know, what sort of colors to wear. We talk about it in work. So equally, my work is here. This is using the same principles even whenever I'm here.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think it's at the moment it's pulling on all the tools that we can possibly use. And I guess also without sugarcoating some of the real emotions, because, you know, emotional intelligence is not positivity. Emotional intelligence is feeling what we need to feel in a moment and giving some space for that as well, really, isn't it? It's, and it's allowing ourselves to kind of come into that space, and to notice what we're feeling and to find our ways to feel those feelings in a healthy way and change them around. How does that sit for you, Michelle? How are you finding that transition of emotions and feelings?
Well, I'm playing Jenga here.
Jenga, cool. Jenga, excellent.
I'm really multitasking the work and family life here at the minute.
Yeah.
But yes, no, I totally agree with you. It's no, okay.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, and Jenga is a perfect life analogy, isn't it? Like it just because with Jenga, the really interesting thing is that it's not the block that you remove in the moment that causes it to fall over. It's the blocks that have been removed beforehand. So that you know depend on the stability or instability of Jenga, and Jenga is that perfect analogy of emotions and emotional well-being, because it can really, you know, it obviously requires concentration and focus, but also it does perfectly, you know, give us that analogy of how everything is balanced together and that one thing is reliant on the other. So we have a few quotes coming in here from some of our some of our listeners, or some of those people watching in. So Geraldine and Sculpt, who's doing morning exercise on Destination Uri, is popping in to say hi. Adele said she did a scavenger hunt with the children yesterday, which was excellent as well. And Joan's saying hi, and Patricia is saying hi in there as well. So thank you to everybody who's listening in. You know, I hope there's been, you know, a little bit of food for thought for everybody that's listening in there. And when I shared that we were going on live, I used two quotes today, which were "Laughter is the best medicine," and the Hippocrates one, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." And, you know, I kind of think if it was good enough 2,500 years ago for the father of modern medicine, then looking at food in terms of how it can nourish us and support us is really, really key at the moment. And in terms of those emotions and kind of juggling those, Emma, how's that journey going for you? I know obviously you're using all the tools in the toolbox, but for feeling the more uncomfortable ones, what advice would you have, or what are you? I suppose the key, I think, is what advice are you giving to yourself? Because in terms of remembering that to notice those more uncomfortable emotions that perhaps are coming up as well.
I mean, I think it is an extremely emotional time. And the last 2 weeks to 3 weeks has been very emotional for me personally as well, as for the people who I am speaking to every day. And I think the first thing is recognizing that this is an emotional time is the first part, and recognizing that this is a scary time. There's a lot of unknowns here. We do not know what is going to be around the corner. And I think the first place for me is accepting where I am right now, and also accepting that I can't change what's going to happen. I can change my home life. I can, wash my hands. I can do my bit for the community and do my bit for my children. And that's as much as I can do. So I accept where we are globally. I accept where we are in the situation, but I also look at what is it that I can do that's going to help me to feel better. But I think also is the advice for me is I have to go back to all of the things, all of the practices that I have in place. They really must be in place now. So for me, I meditate every day, and meditation, I use Insight Timer. And sometimes it's difficult for me to go to a place of meditation and quiet when there's so much going on. But I find the guided meditations on Insight Timer, and some of the ones that you've done, Joanne, and from other friends of mine, the guided meditations are really helping. And I suppose for me, that gives a place of just not worrying, not allowing my mind to go to what is going to be in the future, and to be in that place of fear. I find meditation is really helping right now. I think having a structure in my day and finding what it is that I'm going to focus on has really helped. So at the end of the day before and at the beginning of my day, I'm really focusing on what is it that I want to achieve today. And that could be cut the boys' hair yesterday. It could be the calls that I want to make. It could be the friends who I want to connect with. So establishing in the morning time what it is that I want to do that day helps to distract my mind and to focus on key things. And the other things then that would help me would be to really find something of fun in the day. So at least one thing. So am I going to look forward to today? Am I going to color in today? Am I going to have a bath today? But at least have one thing in my day that I can look forward to, and I do that. So those are that's just three, but I've got, I'm finding that I'm really having to focus on all of those things to look after myself at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people maybe who don't have a regular meditative practice, because now it can be a difficult time to cultivate, as you say, a meditation practice when it's very new to you. One of the pieces of advice that I often give to people is even start with a particular song that helps you feel good and mindfully listen to it. So put on that piece of music and either dance to it and do kind of an active meditation, but allow yourself to hear the words, to hear the music, to engage with it, or perhaps a slower type of music or something like that, that you may just actually sit down and gift yourself the 4 minutes or whatever the average length of a song is, and just notice your breath while you're doing that. And I find that is a lovely introduction and a tangible way that people who maybe don't have a regular meditation practice, because when you've got a busy mind, it can be very difficult to cultivate that. So I think that often people come back to me and say that can be helpful. And absolutely, as you say, have one thing that is joyful, that is lighthearted, that can bring you in all of those kind of different angles as well, and bring all of that together for all of us is going to be really, really important. And again, the normal advice, the reading and all of those things as well. But I think it's important also to, when everything, and I'm conscious that we obviously are online at the moment, is that we also monitor that. I've deliberately been I've taken some apps off my phone, so that when I am engaged in social media, it's consciously engaged rather than unconsciously engaged, because it's very easy to lift your phone and scroll through things and do all of that. So I think creating a balance with some of those things, and also obviously a balance with alcohol and various different things there as well. Caffeine as well, I think it can be easy for people to slip into that extra cup of coffee, that extra caffeine hit that maybe isn't so helpful long term. So I think creating a sense of balance can be really helpful as well. And Michelle, just to go to you just before we finish off there. Not at all. It's the reality of where we all are at the moment is juggling, and that's absolutely the reflection of everything that is where everybody is at the moment. So this is real life, and this is exactly where we are, and it's accepting that sometimes those things will go really smoothly and other times they won't. And as we will know from a lot of the work that we all, I guess, aim to embody and embody in different ways for ourselves. I mean, I remember a number of years ago reading different books and different texts and listening to different people and listening to different teachers and speakers, and there was always that's a lovely way to think, but this is the real world. But it was an aspiration, and I think that's where we all are. We're all work in progress. There's none of us have this absolutely sussed and can perfectly navigate our way through this, because we are human beings. That's exactly what we, someone's just said, well done, Michelle, multitasking. Wow. So super little word of affirmation there. And I get that's somebody who can resonate, who's feeling what you're feeling right now. So, thank you so much for that. But I think reminding ourselves that we are human beings, that's what we are at the moment. Or that quote that I love, which is, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And it's allowing ourselves to be human, and part of human is all that's happening and feelings. I mean, if we weren't feeling some of the feelings that we're feeling at the moment, we'd be robots, because we have never lived through this before. And have you a little bit of advice on how you're navigating some of those more difficult feelings or emotions at the moment, Michelle, or how are you finding that?
I think I've definitely, like you both talked about, had wobbly days. What I'm sensing and feeling, and I'm not sure if you talked about this when I was with Sunny there, but what I'm feeling is that we're all going through the 7 stages of healing, and we're all at various different stages of that. And I think it's just acknowledging how you're feeling, and perhaps not every day will be a good day. There will be days when you do feel a bit depressed, because let's be honest, it is a depressing situation, and I think it's so important that we really do honour how we're feeling, and be kind and gentle with ourselves. So practicing, a little bit of self-compassion, because we have been thrust into this role of homeschooling, working, teaching, and it's all been in isolation. And I think that in itself can bring up and trigger old wounds from the past as well. So it's just really, I think, being really kind and gentle with ourselves, and also reaching out to try and get support from people. Limiting news has helped me. I noticed when I, like what you were saying, consciously engage in social media and not withdraw completely from the news, because it's important that we have a sense of what's happening in the world, but certainly not consuming.
Yeah, I think too much of any good thing is going to be bad for us. Is the thing there? It's the overload of some of the emotions and some of the things there, and the exposure to some of those. So, well, ladies, thank you so much for sharing. For sharing that wisdom and sharing your experiences at the moment. And no doubt, I think we'll be back for another chat at another time. And I think for everybody listening in, if any of it has resonated, please let us know. We'd be delighted to get your feedback on the show. I'll be back on Monday with another set of guests, and we'll be talking about pregnancy and that journey for a lot of people there as well. So Patricia's saying she's enjoyed listening in, some lovely things to try out, looking forward to baking some scones and enjoying them really mindfully. Enjoy the smells, the textures. The whole process of baking is such a sensory process. It's fabulous. So And we have Philip Meyer saying, good morning, ladies. Started very well. Exercise podcast, found work to do. But today I can't get out of my pajamas. And you know what? That is absolutely okay, because we all need a pajama day sometimes as well. And hopefully, you know, it's allowing those things to be where they're at, and then, you know, noticing, I think sometimes too, though, if something is staying around a little bit too long, what measures we need to take to reset that. So enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and thanks again, ladies, for joining me here. And I look forward to chatting to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.